Double Cross, and Other Skills I Learned as a Super Spy by Jackson Pierce. Chapter 7. Castlebury had a single train line that went straight into the city. It was impossible to go wrong. I climbed on, the bag of laundry wedged between my legs, and I tried to relax as we rumbled along. We stopped a dozen or so times on the way, picking up ever stranger assortment of passengers. By the time the city appeared ahead, gray lines that became buildings, that became windows and bridges and cars, we'd collected a few hippies, a few students, and what sounded like 17 crying babies whose screams seemed to make my hidden SRS uniform fit even tighter. I began to wish I'd stolen one of the SRS's helicopters instead. I'd flown one in simulations. How different could it really be? Where Castlebury was old bricks and potted plants, Fairview was steel beams and parking meters. People didn't notice me here any more than they did in Castlebury, but the difference was, in the city, they seemed to be intentionally not noticing me. Which was just as well, really. I didn't want to be seen. I knew the city well enough, since I'd visited on many outings with my parents and the occasional class trip. But being here alone felt very scary? No, not scary. It felt big, like the whole place could swallow me. It made me grin and sort of shake all at the same time. I cut around delis, past food trucks cooking mysterious meat products, and away from the larger buildings, toward the League's headquarters. I knew exactly where League headquarters were. Everyone at SRS did, and everyone at the League, I reasoned, probably knew where we were. I mean, if there were grizzly bear dens near your house, you'd know where they were, right? I took a right at the grocery store and walked past a group of campfire scouts wearing khaki-colored sashes and hawking cookies to every passerby. And then, there it was. Like the SRS, the League occupied a relatively nondescript building, though theirs was big, made of metal and glass and stretching towards the sky. I suspected the height was more of a distraction. Most of their facilities were surely underground, safely buried beneath the city. The letters EBP were on the side of the building in bright red block characters, but I was pretty certain they didn't stand for anything. They were just the sort of letters that a regular person would nod at, assuming they belonged to some rich corporation. The building had wide stairs leading up to it, where people stopped to talk, eat lunch, or stare at the pigeons that hung around a weird, twisty statue. This was where my plan ended. I'd never gotten close enough to the League's building to really study it before, so I couldn't plot how to break in till this exact moment. I pretended to be bored as I analyzed the potential points of entry. My teacher from last year would be proud, I bet, since she did 2 months of classes on breaking into secure buildings. The League had cameras by the front doors, probably more inside. There were likely vents or windows on the lower levels, but slipping through those was for people 6 sizes smaller than I was. The roof was out, since I didn't have air support, as was burrowing underground. Basically, the only way into the League, for me, was through the front doors, which meant I needed a way in, one that would not only get me through the front doors, but past the agents on the other side. I rose and walked away from the building. I ducked into the grocery store and dared to spend a handful of quarters in the vending machine across from the bathroom doors. Because I'd skipped breakfast, I was too hungry to think it straight. The honey bun I bought was dry and mealy, but it was something. I shoved the laundry bag into the corner of the largest stall and leaned against the door as I ate. Think, and think fast, because your parents are in that building and you're all they have. Except I had nothing at all. I closed my eyes and commanded myself to think. Focus on the mission, Hale. Come on. Wait, I didn't have nothing. I had $2 in change and a bag of laundry, which meant I had a plan. Mission: break into the League. Step 1: acquire necessities: knife, tape, and cookies. The knife and tape were easy. I wandered the aisles of the grocery store until I found a guy shelving cans of tuna fish. He seemed like a nice enough guy, So I felt really bad about intentionally shattering one of those 4-gallon glass jars of pickles one aisle over. I shuffled away quickly. The tuna stalker ran past me and groaned, muttering something about floor wax. He stomped off to get a broom. Meanwhile, I snuck back to the tuna fish, snatched his box cutter, and shoved it into my pocket. Knife? Check. Next, I grabbed a bunch of the stickers from the bulk food section. They were supposed to seal bags of self-serve grains. Tape? Check. Cookies were slightly trickier. I considered just stealing them, but I already felt pretty high profile after arriving with a laundry bag and breaking a pickle jar. I couldn't afford to get thrown out, or worse, reported to the police. Instead, I made my way to the bakery section. A glass case housed 24 types of cupcakes and pies and eclairs and all sorts of the desserts SRS would never let us touch, much less eat. The woman behind the bakery counter smiled at me with overly glossed lips. "Are these samples?" I asked her. A plastic plate full of tiny sugar cookies with sprinkles sat on top of the case. She nodded, then smiled. "Help yourself." Her smile faded as I grabbed one of the nearby bakery boxes and shoved almost the entire tray of cookies inside it. I shrugged. She had told me to help myself. Cookies? Check. I yanked an out of order sign off one of the drink machines across the hall, and then I stuck it against the bathroom door to give myself a little privacy. Step 2. Put together the perfect disguise. I dumped the laundry bag out on the floor and reached for a pair of Dad's khakis. I studied them for a moment and then folded them in half so the cuffs of the legs met each other. I pulled out the tuna guy's cutter. Carefully, I drew the blade through the pants, right below the pockets. It took a few cuts before I finally broke through the layers of fabric. Then I grabbed the bulk food stickers and looped them so they were sticky on both sides. Folding the ends of the pant legs over, I ran the stickers along the edge until they were flat and smooth, as clean a line as if the fabric had been sewn that way. All right, the moment of truth. I ducked between two pant legs, letting one end rest on my left shoulder and the other on my right hip, so it became a khaki-colored sash. I picked up the box of cookies and looked at myself in the mirror. Deep breaths, Hale, deep breaths. Half of being a spy is lying. What most people don't realize, and what SRS students learn in year 1, is most of that means lying to yourself. It's easy to trick a stranger into believing a story. After all, they don't know you. Why shouldn't they believe you? But fooling yourself is something else entirely, because you have to bury the real you so far beneath the lie that it doesn't have a prayer of poking its head up. Once you've fooled yourself, though, that's when your cover is perfect. So even though I'd never been a campfire scout, even though I'd never even been camping, period, I walked towards the League with total confidence. After all, I was a campfire scout. I had the sash and cookies to prove it. This was the EBP office building, nothing more. I was just there to hand out cookie samples. What did I have to worry about? Step 3. Walk through the front door. I reached forward, pushing through the revolving glass door. I froze. The lobby ceiling soared all the way to the top of the building, with plants hanging off elevator landings on each floor. Everything was marble, but the building wasn't quite as sleek as SRS's. It smelled more like oranges and leather shoes than cleaner. Behind a broad wooden desk, with a bowl of mints in the corner, was a skinny man wearing a vest and a dotted tie. Other than him, the lobby was totally empty. He gave me a confused look. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said, grinning like a cheerleading animals plastered around Kennedy's bedroom, like this was the best moment ever, ever, ever. I hustled over to him, dimming the smile when he seemed more concerned than charmed. "I'm Walter Quattlebaum from Campfire Scouts Troop 371, sir. I'm here to offer samples of our new line of Campfire Scout cookies. Would you be interested in trying one? I said all this exactly like I was reciting it from a script a troop leader gave me. Oh, the man's eyes lit up. Oh, I shouldn't, sugar and all. He looked from side to side like someone might pounce on him if he said yes, then grinned at me and reached for a cookie. Thanks, I said cheerily. I'm supposed to give out the box to earn my Bakemaster badge. Of course. If you leave them here, I promise I'll. Oh, no, I have to give them out myself to get the badge. The receptionist looked at me and blinked. But can't you just tell your scout leader you gave them away yourself? I widened my eyes. You want me to lie? I said this at nearly a whisper, like I'd never heard anything so horrific. The receptionist hurriedly shook his head and held up his hands. Oh, no, of course not. But I can't let you. I don't have any badges yet, I said, lifting my pants sash woefully. And you want me to lie to get my first one? I sniffed and tensed my face until a few tears dropped from my eyes. My face always turned neon red when I cried, which usually was embarrassing, and part of the reason I never, ever let Walter and his minions make me cry. But right now, that fearful color was coming in handy, along with the fact that I looked about as non-threatening as a kitten. I mean, a crying kid bearing cookies. I let my lower lip quiver just to complete the act. Don't cry, the receptionist begged. I don't want you to lie, of course not. He frowned and glanced down the hall directly behind him. How about you go down the hall, then curve around and come back up here? It shouldn't take long. Drop in any of the open office doors. What about the closed ones? Should I knock? Oh, no, no one works in those. We're pretty short-staffed these days, the receptionist said, looking back down the hall and warily. All right, go on. I grinned, wiped my tears away with the back of my hand, and scurried down the hall, glancing over my shoulder. I saw him look down at his watch. I had 10 minutes, probably, before he'd become suspicious and come after me. I could work with 10 minutes. Step 4, find Mom and Dad.